Life for All presents Daily Food Series, Galatians, the Only Gospel, the Gospel of Christ. Title of Book 5, The Cross, the Landmark of the Dispensation of Faith, by Pedro. Week 4, The Prophetic Word and the False Teachers. Thursday, Living Hope through Faith and the Salvation of the Soul. Read with prayer. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. John chapter 17, verse 17. We observe that Peter's leadership in the church in Jerusalem had weakened as he was put aside and later replaced by James, who was not an apostle. A relevant question then arises. Why was the church in Jerusalem led to practice circumcision? In the 6th chapter of Galatians we read, "As many as desire to make a good showing in the flesh, these would compel you to be circumcised, only that they may not suffer persecution for the cross of Christ." Verse 12. This verse reveals that the practice of circumcision was motivated by the desire to avoid persecution. Thus, to escape persecution, those brothers denied the cross of Christ, and this marks a spiritually lamentable situation. In this context, Peter was no longer listened to, and no one among them was interested in following the prophetic word, a phrase he later defined in his second epistle. For this reason, after the episode recorded in Acts 15, Peter's name is no longer mentioned in the book of Acts. If we look into history, little is known about his whereabouts. He only reappears when he writes his first letter around 64 AD. Yet, to whom was this letter addressed? Peter did not write this letter to the church in Jerusalem, since the brothers and sisters there were no longer willing to listen to the apostles' teaching. Right at the beginning of the epistle, he declares, "Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the pilgrims of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia." 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 1. First, he presents himself as an apostle of Jesus Christ, a title James did not have. Then he declares that the letter is addressed to the pilgrims of the dispersion, located in the regions of Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. The word pilgrim means that they were foreigners. That is, they were scattered Jews who had fled to these regions because of the persecution that had come upon the church in Jerusalem, as recorded in chapter 8 of Acts. In that episode, the brothers and sisters were first scattered throughout Judea and Samaria, nearby regions, and later forced to move further north. For a better understanding, let us look at the following map. When the great persecution, recorded in the 8th chapter of Acts, arose against the church in Jerusalem, there was a dispersion that spread throughout all Judea. Judea is a province with several cities. They were also scattered through Samaria, another Roman province, further north. Above Samaria is Galilee, and above Galilee is Syria, whose capital is Damascus. The persecution did not only happen in Judea, Samaria, and Galilee, but also reached Syria. Therefore, those who were scattered had to flee further north, that is, to Cappadocia, Galatia, Asia, Bithynia, and Pontus. The term dispersion, well known amongst the Jews as the diaspora, refers to those who, fleeing persecution, settled in these regions. Probably many of these Jews were present in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost. Acts chapter 2, verse 5 and verses 9 through 11. And after having been reached by Peter's preaching, they began to live the church life in those early days. Later, with increased persecution, they returned to their homeland or sought refuge in other regions. These are the recipients of Peter's first letter. It was written around the year 64 AD, about 14 years after the Council of Acts 15, when it became evident that the leadership in Jerusalem had been assumed by James, verse 13. A notable aspect of this epistle is that there is no mention of their practicing the law. This shows that Peter was not influenced by Judaism or by the Judaizers. Peter addresses the elect, chosen according to the foreknowledge of God the Father. Elect according to the foreknowledge of God the Father in sanctification of the Spirit, for obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Jesus Christ. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 2. To what did they have obedience? Obedience to the Word, to Christ, to this new direction in the dispensation of faith. Furthermore, he makes reference to the sprinkling of the blood of Jesus Christ, clearly highlighting the centrality of Christ's redemptive work. There is no mention whatsoever of circumcision or keeping the law. Through the death and resurrection of Christ, we receive a living hope. Verses 3 and 4. The law could never offer a living hope. This hope comes from regeneration, a result of the work accomplished on the cross and in the resurrection of Christ. By no means can we deny the work of the cross. We firmly have hope in complete salvation. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 5. Our spirit was regenerated in the new birth. Our body will be transfigured at Jesus' coming. Moreover, in the present, we live the process of the salvation of the soul, which occurs through transformation and sanctification by the Word. John chapter 17, verse 17. Continuing in the same chapter, we see that the goal of our faith is the salvation of our souls. This reveals that by entering the new dispensation of faith, we abandon the dispensation of the law. The salvation of the soul implies sufferings and trials. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 and 7 and verse 9. Just as gold is purified by fire, faith, which is much more precious, also needs to be tested and purified. This happens because the value of faith is directly related to its purity. God needs the impurities of our soul to be removed so that the value of our faith may be elevated.